So some of the key changes from current year to next year, I think clearly, in my view, the top of the list is moving away from this enterprise budgeting structure for recreation and pool. The council spent quite a lot of time considering this over the course of, I would say, a couple of years,
July 14,
and provided
2017
direction back in February of this year to
Hampden
go
Planning
toward a traditional budgeting for those two departments. So that does have the effect of adding the expenses of rec and pool to the
minutes
operating
of
budget.
our
It also adds
last
just
meeting
over
on
$500,000 of
14
offsetting revenues on the
consider.
revenue side of the budget that had not been previously included in the budget. So that's a clear change
All
that
in
if people
favor,
look from
show of
last year to
hands.
this year, the numbers on the both expense and revenue side, there's
No
contribution
old business
because of
tonight,
that
apparently,
change.
is that right, Karen?
The second
Okay. Moving into
significant
new
change, the
business.
proposed budget
First
that's before
public
you would
hearing
add
is
one firefighter.
concerns
This
a
would move
zoning
closer to
ordinance
Chief Rogers'
amendment,
goal
section
of getting to
5.3, permits.
full crew.
Amend
on
the
each of
section
four
to
shifts throughout the
differentiate
week.
between a
Right now,
certificate of
2 of the crews have 2
occupancy
people, 2 of
and
the
a
crews have 4
certificate
people.
of compliance, and
I'm sorry, 2 of
establish
the crews
clear
have 3 people.
procedures for
This will
the
bring 3 of the
issuance
crews
of
to 3
each.
people, leaving 1 of the 4
Also
crews
add
still at just
definitions
2.
to these terms to section
This budget that's
7.2.
before the council tonight would
Set
restore
for public
a
hearing
third full-time
and
position to the recreation
notice was
department.
given.
This is a position that had
Yes, notice
previously
was
existed
given.
but has not been
And
filled
this
since
came through the,
fall of 2014 when
Ordinance
the current
Committee,
director
I'm
was
assuming.
promoted from her
Yes.
then position as assistant.
Is there anyone here who wants to
12%
speak
increase
in
health
favor
insurance
of
from the FY17 budgeted
this
amount.
particular
We've
proposal?
been given estimates that we
Anyone
expect
who
our
wants
insurance
to speak
premiums
in
to go up by
opposition
10 to
or has
15% as
just
of January
general
1st of
questions
next year.
concerning it?
So that increase will only affect
There
half
aren't
of
any, then the
FY18.
public hearing part
But
is closed.
based on year-to-date spending in each of the health insurance lines in the current year, it's clear
Karen,
that we
how would
slightly
you prefer to
under-budgeted
explain
health
it, or have
insurance
it
in the current
run
FY17
through
budget. So
the
the 12% from current
Ordinance
budgeted,
Committee's
I think
report?
is
I assume
going to get us
Mike,
to where
I
we
know,
need to be
had
for
some-
FY18.
Mike had some. Mike,
The
I
budget
think, had
factors
some
in
business
increased
out of
town
town, and
responsibility
we
for
considered this, so-
certain
Right.
types of
Right.
retirement plans under Maine PERS,
Sure, I-
which is
Unfair
prescribed
questions. So
by
Karen, tell us
Maine
about
PERS.
it.
That's not a
I
discretionary
can give an
increase.
explanation on this.
And
It
while
came
it's
to our
still well
attention,
below past
earlier
years,
this year
municipal,
that the-
revenue sharing from the
That this
state
section of the
does increase
ordinance,
somewhat
5.3,
to
was
$393,000 in the
unclear at best,
FY18
I guess
budget
you
from
could say,
$377 in the
on
current
how you're
year's
supposed to
budget.
deal with, or
And there
how
are changes to the
certificate of
Homestead Act, which
occupancy
will increase
was done, or certificate of
exemptions
compliance, and
for
what it meant.
eligible
So when I started taking a closer
homeowners
look at it, I
from
said, well, this doesn't
$15,000
make
of
any
value to
sense. We really
$20,000
need
of
to have
value,
two things. There needs to
but
be a
the state
certificate of compliance
reimbursement
that deals with
to the
things that go
municipality
through the
for that
planning board,
lost
such as a
revenue
site plan or
will
subdivision,
increase
and
from
a certificate of
50%
occupancy,
to
which is attached to
62.5%. So
a
it's not
building
simple
permit.
to provide the actual
So
net
I worked
effect of
with
that, but
Miles Block,
I
code
just want to make
enforcement
clear to
officer,
everybody the
to
proposed
come up
budget
with
does
language
reflect
that
state
made
policy
more
change.
sense, and we're
We
both
have
very
once
comfortable
again
with what
projected
has
or
been
budgeted
proposed.
the use of environmental
Ordinance
trust
Committee,
revenues
if I can
to
remember
offset
correctly,
budgeted stormwater
did look at
management
this and
expenses.
sent it
So where
to
the
the planning
stormwater
board.
management
We had
has a
initially
proposed
expected this
expense
to be a
budget
public
of just
hearing
over
last month,
$72,000.
and due to a
We
glitch in
have
getting
carried
the
that same
legal
amount
notice
in
done,
proposed
we had to
or
postpone it to
projected
this month.
revenues
As
on
I recall, the
from
Ordinance
Environmental
Committee's
Trust, and we've met with the environmental-
recommendation is that it ought to accept the proposal and send it on to the council with a recommendation that they sort of adopt it, right?
That's right.
And that was unanimous, I believe.
I believe so, yes.
Again, can you give us, just for people who may be listening at home, just a very thumbnail description of the difference between a certificate of occupancy and a certificate of compliance?
Yeah, a certificate of compliance, let me give it to you as an example. If you've got a commercial development, a new commercial development, and there's a site plan with, parking lot and all that kind of stuff, drainage and structures and so on, and a new building that's going to be constructed, there will be two phases to it. The first is building the site itself, along with the building. The certificate of compliance is a determination by town staff that the site was constructed in compliance with the approved site plan, so that the parking is laid out correctly, the landscaping is correct, the drainage is correct, and so on and so forth. And then the certificate of occupancy goes with the building, so that once the building is done and has been inspected and meets all, determined that it meets all building codes and whatnot, then a certificate of occupancy is issued for that. So in that example, both a certificate of compliance and a certificate of occupancy will be issued. If somebody is getting a building permit, if they're just putting a small addition onto a site or something like that, and they don't need to go through site plan review, then they still need to get the certificate of occupancy, because that's attached with the building permit that they're required to get.
Thank you.
Would it be our code enforcement officer that would make a determination on the certificate of compliance?
It's both the code enforcement officer and the town planner.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Why do we need this? I mean, we go through the planning board gives site approval, and that's it. Why do we have to add another certificate of something, blah, blah?
The certificate of occupancy had been serving.
Well, no, if you read this here, it says, after completion of the work permitted by the planning board and stabilization of the site, the applicant shall submit an application after he's already done site work?
That application is just basically it's a simple form to say, I'm ready for your inspections to determine that the site has been completed in compliance with the site plan. So the certificate of...
They've been doing that all along, though.
Yeah, they've been doing it through the certificate of occupancy. And it's
Oh,
to
as a
certain extent,
subgroup of that, as preemptive, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure. I hate adding paper.
Oh, we're not really adding any new procedures or paperwork. It's really just a matter of clarifying what we're
As soon as I see something
doing.
about the planning board, I mean, the planning board, we've already approved the site.
Yeah, the
That's
planning
all I
board
need to know.
doesn't get involved in this process.
Okay.
It's really a matter of making sure that, if we're going to have people go through a process to get a site plan approved, we really ought to be making sure that they're complying with what they got approved. Otherwise, there's no point in having them go through the process to get approved in the first place. If the town's basically saying, well, we
Right,
don't
it just
care what you
seems
did.
a moot point. If we've already passed it, it's already approved.
Yes,
Why
but
do
it hasn't been
They need
billed.
to apply for the fact that they're approved?
No.
That's what it sounds like.
First they go through the approval process to get the site plan approved.
Yeah.
Then they go out and they construct the site.
Yeah.
Then they ask for the certificate of compliance after it's been built.
Right. I
So they're
I
not-
don't see the need for that when it's an after the fact aspect.
No.
I actually do see a need for it. I think it's,
Why do we have this?
yeah,
Who's to say that they've complied?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody has to make that judgment, and
if they had to do some sort of plantings for a buffer or something like this to make sure that that was done in accordance with the site plan. This planning board doesn't see it,
I know.
but somebody has to hold the developers
It's always been code
responsible,
enforcement.
accountable, and I think it's a good idea. And I think it helps to clarify that these things get built in accordance with what this planning board is requiring.
So we're seeing that there's been violation, that we are not? I mean, I can see the need for something if there's been violation that's slipped through the cracks because we don't have it tight. And if we don't have that, we're just adding something else to something that already works.
I can think of a few examples in my professional career that
No, I'm talking about Hampden, not.
I understand,
Yeah.
but in general, this is a good idea. And it prevents some things from slipping through the cracks. I think it defines things better, as Karen explained.
any other?
Whatever.
Jim?
When the ordinance committee looked at this, we compared it, this draft, to the original section, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a classic example of how not to write an ordinance. It was unclear, convoluted. Yeah, I've been a lawyer for 50 years, and I couldn't understand it. So what Karen and Miles did is take it and put it into simple English, so that there's no question as to what the ordinance means and who's responsible for what. That's a great job of housekeeping, I think.
I agree with that, so it's, yeah. Any other questions or comments, you guys? If not, I guess the question's whether we send this back to the council with a recommendation that they should adopt it or not, I guess.
I would make a motion that we send this ordinance amendment to town council with an ought to pass as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments or discussion? Mike?
Yes?
Kelly?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Next, second public hearing, it's a zoning ordinance amendment to section 7.2 under definitions. It's regarding solid waste processing and transfer station. Again, public notice has been given, Karen, right?
Yes, it has.
Okay. We had any public comments on this?
We haven't received anything.
Okay. Is there anyone here who wants to speak either in favor of, against, or has a general question concerning what this all means? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Karen, can you give us a breakdown on why this is here?
Yes, one of the things that the town has heard, and this board has heard loud and clear over the last 12 months or so, is that most of the residents in the town are not interested in having a solid waste transfer station within the boundaries of the town, outside of what's done by the town down at the town's transfer station on Carmel Road, right? With the fiberite facility at this stage of the game being behind schedule on construction, and based on some conversations or some communications that the town manager had been a part of, we felt as though there was a potential risk that the fiberite facility or site was going to be used possibly temporarily, possibly not, as a transfer station. And we felt that in order to make sure that we protected the interests of the citizens, which have been loud and clear that they don't want a transfer station, we needed to make sure that the zoning did not inadvertently allow it. In looking at the definition of processing, for something else actually, then I looked at it and I said, this doesn't make any sense, because this means that a transfer station would be permitted anywhere that processing is listed, in any of the districts that processing is listed. So the town manager asked me to to make some amendments or propose some amendments that would make sure that we were not putting ourselves into a position that we did not think we were going to be in. And that's the history of where this is coming from. When I was putting these together, I wanted to make certain that it was not going to have an adverse impact on the approved fiberite facility or the operations and existence of the Pine Tree facility on the other side of Colebrook Road. And I understand that Casella had taken a look at this. I have not seen any communications from them town manager has been on vacation for the last week and a half or so. I don't know whether he had received any communication, but I don't think so, because if he had received any communication from Casella, he would have forwarded it on to me, even though he's on vacation. We know that he has had an opportunity to look at emails from time to time. So at this stage of the game, I am assuming that that there's no opposition to the proposed language in here from Casella. And of course, it will be another public hearing before the town council once the town manager gets back. If it turns out that there has been some kind of communication and they've got some issues with it, then it can be brought up at the town council hearing.
This also went to the ordinance committee and this proposal, right?
Yes.
And it was the ordinance committee approved
Yep.
our ordinance committee approved the
Right,
Your
recommended,
proposal.
yeah, recommended ought to pass.
Can we make sure this gets, after it runs through the system, make sure Fiber Right knows about it?
Yeah, Fiber Right already knows about it.
They know?
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming
Yeah.
down the pike. I don't want
Yeah.
surprises.
Yeah, we had made sure that we notified them when
Yeah.
we were in communications with what's
Okay.
going on out there.
Thanks.
Since they've been under, having difficulties with their schedule, and the question of where they're going to be on April 1st, 2018 has been in the forefront of many people's minds. We've been working we've been communicating with DEP as well as Fiberite and their consultants on everything that needs to happen in order for them to be able to, get to the various steps that they need to do, get the building permit, get this done, get that done, and so on and so forth. They've been working diligently on getting the financing in place. They're expecting that to happen completely within the next couple of months.
Yeah.
And they do have the financial backing at this stage of the game. Once they have the financial close, they will have the financial backing for construction of the entire facility. Because there was a serious question for a short period of time as to whether the wet end was going to be delayed by some period of time. From what I've heard in the communications with DEP really wants them to just do the whole thing. And since they seem to be able to get the financing for the whole thing, then they'll be moving forward. The wet end does require several months or 6 months or whatever it is for the digestion process to get built up enough that they can start using it.
Oh, yeah, I know the system. Yeah.
So there will be, the whole thing's not going to open up automatically on April 1st, but they will be open. We're expecting that they'll be open on April 1st to begin processing material. So,
Mr. Chair.
Has anybody been out there lately?
we have,
What's-
Woodard and Curran is the town engineers.
Yeah.
They've been doing inspections on the roadway and
Yeah,
infrastructure
I
construction.
saw the roadway work. Has anybody been out to the site? Is anything going on?
They have, I haven't been out there, but I understand that they've cleared the site.
I'm gonna go out there.
And they
I
don't
keep
have,
intending to, yeah.
I'm going
Every
to.
time I go by there, I think I ought to ride down there. Yeah.
Gotta ride down. I'll tell you how long it'll take. It won't ta- That's a minor facility.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I think it's important to note that although this comes up in the context of Fiber Right being the first to make an application or possibly make an application in this regard, it was clarifying that there was a void in our ordinances discussing transfer stations that caused us to make this change, rather than a specific ordinance targeted at Fiber Right. It would apply to anyone, but the void existed in the ordinance. And we would not have been able to answer this question and apply it to anyone had we not changed the ordinance.
that's right.
That was the
Thank you.
discussion clearly in the ordinance committee meeting. right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was to handle the void in the question.
Right.
But, I mean, it seems obvious that it's prompted by Fiber Right. And it covers everything else that could happen, yeah. In terms of transfer stations. so,
But those terms weren't clearly defined, and they needed definition.
yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, what's your pleasure?
Oh, somebody's got to do something, okay. I move that we accept the modifications to the definitions of 7.2 as presented.
I think the question is whether we send it back to the council with a recommendation
Recommendation,
that they
okay.
do that.
Then we do that and send it back to them with a recommendation to accept what's presented. Is that good enough?
Good for me.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Mort?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes?
Chair votes yes. Acting chair votes yes. Good. So that takes care of the new business. Staff reports, a zoning map.
So this can take the place of having an ordinance committee meeting next week, unless you want to talk about something else, which I'll go over in a minute. The zoning map, it came to my attention a couple of months ago that we don't have an officially signed zoning map, and haven't had one since 1979. So the zoning map, of course, has been amended over and over and over again, and the way that the ordinance reads is that the zoning map is supposed to be, once it's amended, it's supposed to be reprinted and signed by the town manager and signed by the town clerk, and that's never happened. We do have a signed one again from 1979. What we'd like to do is to take the existing zoning map, as everybody understands it to be, and run it back through the adoption process so that town council is actually taking a vote on it to say, this is the official zoning map that we have as of this particular day, and then it will get signed by the town manager and the town clerk and will be the official one, and whenever an amendment goes through, then we'll go through that correct process. I mean, town council, planning board and town council will be acting on all these amendments anyway, and it'll simply be a matter of printing out the map as amended and having the town manager and the town clerk sign it. And that way we'll always have an actual official zoning map. This is, it's an easier process than having me or anybody else go back and research every single zoning map amendment since 1979 to make sure that the boundaries are correct. This came about because I discovered that there is an error, I think I mentioned this a few months ago, in the interchange district where a line is in the wrong place, a boundary line is in the wrong place. And it was very clear, in going back and doing the research on that, it was very clear from the record where that line was supposed to be, and it ended up in the wrong place on all the zoning maps that I could find. So this is the cleanest way to go about fixing this problem.
Who's going to commit to signing off with that far back?
Well, that's the purpose of taking it back through the adoption process. So what we'll do is we'll essentially take the full zoning map as it exists today.
You're going to start in 79, you're going to build forward?
No.
You're just gonna take it right
We're just
now?
going to take it from where it is, from our understanding of
Yeah.
where the boundaries are right now, and we'll take it through public hearing with the planning board and then public hearing with town council.
That's going to have to be noticed to everybody, right, in the whole town?
It will be the same kind of notice that we do for text amendments. We don't have to have a butters notification, if you will, go out to everybody in the town.
Really? You don't
Yeah.
think so?
No.
Well, how do you know? You don't know what's going on over, that's, what, that 30 years? 30 years of changes and nobody's approved it?
Yeah, nobody ever
Yeah, nobody
signed
it
off on any of
That
them.
means my comprehensive plan's no good.
It's, it kind of blew my mind when I
Yeah,
found out that was the,
A minor
that was the
detail.
case. I mean, oftentimes it'll slip through the cracks once or twice, but going all the way back to 1979 without a signed map was,
This is just another
much.
example of Karen's diligence creating more work for herself. How many times have you done that, Karen?
everything was fine. Why'd you have to go poke your nose in there?
Right. You're gonna bring us up to the
I was ready to
current day.
retire, now I gotta work on this.
Yeah, when was it that we, must have been, what, 5 years ago or 6 years ago that we took a hard look at it. We went through it very thoroughly, this planning board did.
For when? During what? I mean, we looked at it, the comprehensive plan, I know that. But I didn't even look to see if, I didn't even know, and nobody told me it had to be approved, but
Well,
whoever.
no,
Yeah.
that never came up in any of the
No,
discussions.
it was fine then,
Bob was here at that time,
yeah. Huh,
but
stuff happens.
Anyway,
it makes sense to me.
Sounds like a plan.
so that's what, yeah, so that's what the expectation is that we're gonna do.
Would have been really embarrassing in some lawsuit that the town gets involved in, and we're trying to enforce a change in a zoning ordinance that's never been properly approved by the town. That would,
We could just eliminate the need for having it approved. That'd be simple. Then we're in compliance.
Actually, that doesn't really work very well when you're in a courtroom and you're trying to defend your zoning ordinance, and the judge is gonna wanna know whether the map is official, and if you haven't got
Well,
any
they're gonna
way
have
of
to prove
proving
that
it,
it's
then that can be tough.
Do the research.
What I've been working on over the last couple days, and will continue working on tomorrow, is going through the use table, and I'm starting to work on the complete redo of Article 3, and it actually gets into Article 2 as well, because I'm moving some of this stuff from Article 3 to Article 2. I don't know whether the ordinance committee wants to meet next week to go over where I am on that project. I see a no. Okay, we'll wait until I've gotten further along in that, and
yeah,
then,
until you've got
and then have
something
a,
for us. I would
have an
think.
OC meeting then. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, we just looked at it anyway.
Yeah, we did.
Just,
Yeah, we looked at
You've
the,
made awesome progress on it since.
yeah. Yeah, at this stage of the game, what I'm doing is going through the use table and saying, okay, for this particular district, does this use actually make any sense? Should it be by conditional use, or should it just be a site plan, or should it not be permitted at all, or whatever? Also looking at, some of the districts are very similar, and I'm looking at the potential of combining some of the districts. If all the uses are basically the same and whatnot, so.
I think, Karen, whenever you get it to a point where you're feeling you're pretty close,
Then bring it
then bring it
to
up.
OC. Okay, that works for me. And that's all I've got for staff report.
Thank you. About planning board comments.
Only thing I want to, with respect to the minutes, Karen, we're probably getting a little bit of a stack of minutes that need to be signed by me. So if you want to bring them here, I can sign them off, or I'm glad to come in,
Okay.
whichever way.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that recently. I was thinking, we probably need to have, because in the vault, there's binders of planning board minutes. And I'm thinking, I don't know when the last time that was updated. So I'll check.
I usually
Or I'll
sign
have
off
Danielle check
every
and-
few months.
Okay,
I come in and sign off on them.
okay.
It's probably been a little while now.
Yeah. I know that nothing's happened since I started working here, and I don't know when the last time anything did. It may have been when Bob was here. Anyway, I'll have Danielle check into it, and we'll get back to you, and
Time flies.
I'll have her, yeah, if the last binder is all filled up, then I'll have her put together a new one, and specifically for the vault, and we'll give you a buzz, and you can come in and get writer's cramp, signing them all.
Anything else? A motion?
Second.
Well, that was quick.
I'm in.
Wasn't even made, okay. All in favor? Thank you for coming.